Welcome to Flashback, a recap of some stories that made headlines during the week. We begin on Monday when the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-rufai, filed a ₦1 billion fundamental rights enforcement suit against the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, over the alleged unlawful search of his Abuja residence. Mr. El-rufai was challenging the validity of a search warrant issued on February 4th by a magistrate court in the FCT. In the suit, he listed the ICPC as the first respondent, alongside the Chief Magistrate of the FCT Magistrate Court, the Inspector General of Police, and the Attorney General of the Federation. He asked the court to declare the search warrant invalid, null and void, and to rule that any evidence obtained from the search is inadmissible in any proceedings against him. That same Monday, the People's Democratic Party moved to challenge the election results in the FCT Area Council election and announced the inauguration of a special legal team to pursue the matter. In a statement by its factional National Publicity Secretary, Ini Ememogong, the party congratulated the winners but alleged widespread irregularities. The PDP disclosed that the legal team will be led by its national legal advisor, Shafi Barau, and urged aggrieved candidates to act promptly in seeking legal redress. On Tuesday came with the resignation of the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, who cited pressing family considerations. Accepted the resignation, President Bola Tinubu commended Mr. Egbetokun for his decades of distinguished service and praised his dedication and effort in strengthening Nigeria's internal security architecture. In line with the extant laws, President Tinubu approved the appointment of Assistant Inspector General of Police Tunji Disu as Acting Inspector General of Police with immediate effect. The President expressed confidence in AIG Disu's leadership capacity, noting that a meeting of the Nigeria Police Council will be convened in accordance with the Police Act 2020 to consider his substantive appointment before forwarding his name to the Senate for confirmation. Also on Tuesday, the federal government filed a fresh 12-count criminal charge against senior lawyer Mike Ozekhome over allegations of forgery and conspiracy linked to a property in the United Kingdom. In the charge filed before a court in Abuja, prosecutors accused the senior advocate of Nigeria alongside Ponfa Hussaini, also known as Talishani, and the late General Jeremiah Hussaini of conspiring to forge documents to support ownership claims to a property at number 79 Randall Avenue, London. The government further alleged that the defendants produced a fake Nigerian international passport in the name Talishani, purportedly issued by the Nigerian Immigration Service, which was used to validate claims to the property. Also on Wednesday, President Bola Tinubu decorated Olatunji Disu as the Acting Inspector General of Police and charged him to restore public confidence, strengthen discipline, and drive reforms within the Nigeria Police Force. The President also commended the outgoing IGP, Kayode Egbetokun, for his service and contributions to national security.
At a time Nigeria grapples with banditry, terrorism, and other criminal threats, President Bola Tinubu hands over the leadership of the Nigeria Police Force to a new helmsman, Olatunji Disu. During the decoration ceremony at the presidential villa, President Bola Tinubu expressed confidence in Olatunji Disu's competence, citing his track record and years of service.
And now you assume this responsibility at a defining moment for our nation's security, and expect you to strengthen the discipline, enhance interagency collaboration, and restore public confidence in Nigerian police. Lead firmly but fairly, demand professionalism at every level, and ensure that safety of lives and property remains our highest priority. It's a daunting challenge. I know you can do it.
The new Acting Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu, described his appointment as both an honor and a challenge, pledging to prioritize professionalism, discipline, and public trust. Olatunji Disu also declared zero tolerance for corruption and impunity within the force, promising reforms anchored on human rights and accountability.
I will let them know that the area of impunity is over. I will ensure that I train them and encourage them to ensure they follow human rights. I will ensure that they know that I will try to follow a regime of zero tolerance to corruption. And most importantly, I'm going to drum it into them that we can never succeed without the cooperation of members of the public.
As Olatunji Disu takes over the reins of the Nigerian police force, expectations remain high that his leadership will confront insecurity and reposition the force for greater efficiency and public trust.
On the same day, the arraignment of former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-rufai at the Federal High Court in Abuja was stalled due to the absence in court. Justice Joyce Abdul-Malik adjourned the matter to 23rd of April, directing the Department of State Services to ensure the defendant was produced in court. During proceedings, defense counsel attempted to move a bail application in the absence of the defendant, but the prosecution opposed it. In a brief ruling, Justice Abdul-Malik held that a bail application could not be entertained before arraignment. The prosecution informed the court that Mr. El-rufai remained in the custody of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, which accounted for his absence. The federal government had filed a free count charge against him, alleging that he unlawfully intercepted the phone communications of the National Security Advisor, Nuru Ribadu. We flash back to Thursday when the Independent National Electoral Commission moved the conduct of the 2027 general elections forward by 5 weeks. INEC issued a revised timetable and schedule of activities for the elections. Under the new schedule, the presidential and National Assembly elections were fixed for 16th of January 2027 instead of the earlier date of 20th February. The governorship and state houses of assembly elections were rescheduled to hold on Saturday, 6th February 2027. The development followed the repeal of the Electoral Act 2022 and the enactment of the Electoral Act 2026. Party primaries, including the resolution of disputes arising from the primaries, were scheduled to commence on 23rd April 2026 and end on the 30th May 2026. Campaigns for the presidential and National Assembly elections were set to begin on the 19th August 2026. Governorship and State Houses of Assembly campaigns were to commence on the 9th of September 2026. In addition, the Osun State governorship election, earlier fixed for 8th of April 2026, was rescheduled to 15th August 2026. That same Thursday, leaders of the African Democratic Congress and the New Nigeria People's Party formally rejected the newly signed Electoral Act 2026. Addressing a press conference in Abuja, the opposition figures described the law as ill-timed and dangerous.
President Bola Tinubu last week signed the Electoral Act 2022 Repeal and Reenactment Amendment Bill 2026 into law, noting that it closely followed deliberations at the National Assembly. But opposition political parties say key provisions in the new act could weaken the mandatory election transmission of results from polling units and potentially open the door for manipulation at the collation stage. The national chairman of the NNPP, Ajuji Ahmed, who presided over the press conference, was joined by other prominent opposition figures. They also criticized the amendment to Section 84 of the Act, which limits political parties to direct primaries and consensus as methods for selecting candidates.
They must remove all obnoxious provisions and ensure that the Act reflects only the will and aspirations of Nigerians for free, fair, transparent, credible electoral process in the country.
Because there must be something. We can see it from FCT election. Again, the second issue is, why do you dabble into political parties' mode of selection of their candidates?
The opposition also raised concerns over the recent FCT area council elections, describing them as a test run for what they allege could be a broader plan to manipulate the 2027 general elections.
I will call other opposition parties that are not here today to make sure that they are part of this movement of the unity of the opposition parties to ensure we restore our democracy.
There's need, very urgent need, for all the opposition parties, those who are not here today. We're pleading that we all come together.
The parties are now demanding an immediate review of the Electoral Act 2026 to remove what they call obnoxious provisions and ensure the law reflects the will of Nigerians for transparent and credible elections. They also pledged to explore all constitutional means to challenge what they described as a creeping threat to democratic governance.
And the presidency hit back at opposition parties over criticisms of the newly amended Electoral Act 2026 and accused them of spreading misinformation and raising unnecessary alarm. The response came after leaders of the ADC and NNPP raised concerns over key provisions of the law. In a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, the presidency dismissed the opposition's claim as reckless and misleading. According to the presidency, the new Electoral Act strengthened rather than weakened the electoral process. At the center of the disagreement was the issue of electronic transmission of results. The opposition argued that allowing Form EC8A as a backup could open the door to manipulation, but the presidency maintained that the position was flawed. Finally, on Flashback, a suspect linked to the attack on a church in Kogi State was arrested by operatives of the Department of State Services DSS. The suspect, identified as Shafiu Usman, was said to be the mastermind behind the December 2025 deadly assault on the First Ekwa Church in Kaba, Bunu local government area, which occurred during a worship service. Eyewitnesses reported that gunmen arrived while the service was in progress, firing indiscriminately to cause panic and forcing many worshippers to flee. His arrest came just days after the DSS announced the detention of Sani Yusuf linked to the June 2022 attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State.